I haven't prepared any notes. I'm speaking entirely off the cuff, but I really want to talk about philanthropy, billionaires, why it is that we let them have so much power over us, how it's not actually good for our society, and what we consider as like helping, as charity, as the benevolence of the super rich. It just actively makes our society worse. Now, please understand I'm coming from my perspective as a permaculture person. My ethics are earth care, people care, and the ever controversial fair share. I am an anti capitalist. I would love to be a post capitalist. I dream of a post capitalist world. But I understand that we are currently living under the exploitation of late stage capitalism. Those who are exploiting us are the super rich. I stand in opposition to all of the harm that they are causing. Therefore, I am anti billionaire and anti capitalist. I think we should tax them out of existence. There is more than enough wealth in this country to end homelessness, to house everybody, to give everybody universal health care, to make sure that every American has their basic needs met. And then there's actually a shit ton left over for us to make sure that we help take care of and provide for the basic needs of all of the people around the world that we have exploited to make America the greatest nation on earth, or whatever it is that we think about ourselves. Or maybe like a chunk of Americans did up until November. I'm somebody who has worked in a volunteer capacity in nonprofit spaces for a really long time, relying on the funding of nonprofits to do the kind of community care work that upholds my permaculture values. And so I have developed a pretty strong opinion of philanthropy in the United States. It's actually the people who think that they're good billionaires, benevolent billionaires. It's the people who think that they are benevolent billionaires that really inform my position that we should do away with the billionaire class altogether. Because like we know what Peter Thiel is, right? We know what Elon Musk is. Again, the things that they were willing to do in order to become this wealthy, inherently unethical. They're starting from a position of compromised ethics, but then they are now insulated by their extreme wealth, surrounded by yes men. They have a very skewed, twisted perception of how all of us live. So the Dark Enlightenment movement, the Curtis Yarvins, the Peter Thiels, the Elon Musks, Mark Zuckerberg, like that, their position doesn't really surprise me, right? They want to make all of us serfs and install themselves as feudal lords over us. They are perfectly happy to dehumanize you and me and everybody else and treat us as cogs in their machine. They want us to exist, to spend all of our life hours, all of our labor, all of our expertise. That's for one purpose, to funnel all of our wealth up to them. They have their vision, they have their worldview, and they have tremendous quantities of wealth that they are spending trying to enact that worldview, trying to make their desires, their fantasies a reality. And they think they're entitled to do that because they're rich and because they're surrounded by yes men who have warped their perception of reality over time. This is why they're all like the worst kind of pseudo-intellectuals. They think they're real smart. Y'all, have you seen Peter Thiel? Have you seen an interview with him? I mean, we all know what Elon Musk is like. I think we've all had plenty of exposure to him since the election, to what he's really like. I said a long time ago that the more we saw Elon Musk on camera, the more what he really is was going to become apparent. That he was going to ick himself right out of the federal government. And Peter Thiel's the same way. Now we find out that he is setting up a 4-part teaching series. He wants to do a seminar on the Antichrist. These guys start to sound like cult leaders because they're surrounded by kind of an adoring, worshipful cluster of supporters, employees that are paid to affirm billionaires' worldview. And yeah, if you read about the Dark Enlightenment, if you read about their plans for the United States and the world, it's pretty fucking horrifying what they would like to bring about. It shows you how twisted they really are. But the thing is, y'all, the super rich are all like this. They all have the world that they want to bring about. They all think that because, their egos, their power are so massive, their wealth is so massive, they think that they are entitled to shape the future of the world. It's just that the Dark Enlightenment folks want a really bleak and terrible future. But any billionaire who is engaged in philanthropy, any super rich person who is funding whatever he's funding, he has a worldview that he wants to bring about. The hubris, y'all, of these folks, they think they have a right. They think they know better than all of us and that they have a right to shape the entire world to match whatever it is that they fantasize about. And again, having worked in nonprofit spaces for a long time, when you look at philanthropists, that should become abundantly clear to you, right? I think with the exception of Mackenzie Scott, who gives with no strings attached, although she still does decide what organizations she wants to fund with her wealth. In general, the super rich give grants, give funding with all kinds of strings attached. One of my kids likes to say, it's like when you apply for a scholarship in college and they say, do a little dance, poor person, and maybe we'll throw some pennies at you. That's what the whole nonprofit sphere is like, right? How much wealth, resources, time, energy is wasted on grant applications, and you get money that has all kinds of stipulations and all kinds of requirements attached to it. The billionaires want you to do a little dance to get access to their money, and they will give their money to the organizations, however nonprofit or not that they are, in order to shape the world as they see fit, in order to reinforce their wealth and power, but more than that, to reinforce their worldview. And that is why it is so dangerous. That's why it is so disturbing to me. All of the philanthropy sector, all of the nonprofit sector exists because we don't tax billionaires out of existence. We make good people with worthy and just causes have to do a little dance in order to get billionaires to throw some pennies at them. And then they'll say, you can only have these pennies if you spend it in a certain way, if you focus on a certain program, if your messaging is exactly what I want, I will decide how you spend your money. I know that you work in this field, you're the expert in this area, but I will go ahead and add all kinds of qualifiers, all kinds of strings, because I think I know better than you. That's one of the reasons that I like Mackenzie Scott's work, because she says when she decides on an organization, she puts no strings attached. She says the people who run these nonprofits, they know better than me what the needs are that they're trying to meet. Again, after many, many years doing this kind of work, I fully believe that philanthropy is a scam. It just reinforces the billionaires' power, their wealth, their worldview. You think the Bill Gates Foundation doesn't have an agenda? You think the super rich don't have their own agendas, and that those agendas might not actually be that well informed? They're definitely warped and twisted by the fact that they are very insulated from our lived experience. They're very insulated from the consequences of their own actions. We are made to pay for their extreme wealth. We are made to pay for their business practices. We are experiencing the hardship because they have been able to enrich themselves. And they act like it's giving back, or it's easing their conscience, or they think that they're, meant to be praised and adored for making a better world. But then they go ahead and fight against us raising taxes on them. They go ahead and fight against a wealth cap, even though they have more money than they could spend in 100 lifetimes. Bill Gates has already met with Donald Trump, twice? There's no such thing as a good billionaire. None of these fuckers are good. If they were good, they would give away all of their wealth. Not Warren Buffett, I'll give it away after I die. And then I'll only give it in specific ways that help my legacy. I just cannot emphasize enough the tremendous amount of arrogance and hubris of the super rich. Kat Black said something about this the other day, right? There's never going to be piles of money for anybody pushing an anti-capitalist agenda, because it doesn't matter where on the political spectrum the super rich are, they're going to continue to reinforce the systems that keep them wealthy and powerful. Namely, the system of capitalism, right? They are not going to ultimately, at the end of the day, support anything with their wealth that would create a post-capitalist America, that would limit their wealth, their influence, that would tax them out of existence. Definitely not anything that would promote, redistribution of wealth, an economy based on contentment, sufficiency, meeting each other's needs, right? Philanthropy reinforces the system that keeps these guys wealthy and powerful. The need for them to do philanthropy is artificial. If they really, really cared about the causes that they are supporting, political, environmental, social justice causes that they are supporting, they would actually try and reform the system. They would actually be for a wealth cap. They would actually want to redistribute their resources, their wealth, end the systems of exploitation, rather than try and assuage their own guilt or whatever it is that they're doing. There are no ethical billionaires. There are no good billionaires. When I see people saying that Taylor Swift is good, that Mark Cuban will save us, no, y'all. No. They don't really want meaningful change. They just want us to do a little dance so they can throw some pennies at us so that we will be pacified.